So here we find ourselves in the final verdict for the SU-76M, where I'll be talking about the strengths and unfortunately the weaknesses I believe this vehicle has. So onto its strengths. You can penetrate anything you will come up against, even with the standard APHEBC shell, which is great. I mean, the fact that you can do damage to whatever you see as long as you can get the gun on it means that you can successfully be able to fight off enemies at a good pace. Having so many different ammunition types means that you can be equipped for any situation. Obviously with heat, it's very good at penetrating and doing damage. The APHEBC shell is wonderful, and then you have APBC just for that extra bit of penetration, and then APCR for even more penetration. So whatever you come up against, even if you come up against a Panther or a Panzer V, you're able to penetrate them, which is absolutely wonderful. Unfortunately, that's where the strengths run out. Now, if we look at the weaknesses, we shall see some problems. The armour is so thin, it may as well not be there. When you're talking about 20mm of armour, or 10mm, or 15mm of armour, any gun in the game can penetrate that, which also includes aircraft. So basically, you are a walking, ticking time bomb when it comes to people shooting you. People may say, oh, don't get shot. Well, good luck with that. Engine fires seem to happen over and over again. Because there are two engines in this thing, it is very easy to penetrate and hit the engines with high explosive, especially because of the fact that there is no goddamn armour. I wouldn't even be surprised if you could just use a HE shell to set the thing on fire. But I haven't tested that, so maybe I'll find out later. The gun is definitely more RNG than consistency. Even though you can penetrate basically anything you come up against, doing damage is the real thing that you want to be doing. And a lot of the time, I feel like this gun over-penetrates, so the shell goes straight through the tank and not doing basically any damage. But I'm not sure. Once again, there's no way I can test that. So, you know, basically, this gun to me does just not work properly. It should be a wonderful gun, and sometimes it is, but most of the time it isn't. The game mechanics are just not designed for a vehicle like this. In my opinion, in Arcade and Realistic, it is designed around the idea of medium and heavy tank battles. Also, a few light tanks thrown in there, but not many, and tank destroyers and stuff like the SU-76 just do not have a role in that. In simulator battle, they kind of have a role, but once again, would you rather have this or a T-34 or a KV-1? That's what you gotta ask yourself on your team. The maps are not big enough to really use this vehicle to its true effectiveness. One of the biggest strengths of this thing is the fact that at 1,000 meters, you can penetrate somebody with 67mm of armor, which is basically anything you can come up against. The problem is, engaging somebody at 1,000 meters never happens. Absolutely never at the moment. The maps are not designed for the SU-76, they need to be bigger. And, well, that also gets onto the maps, which is another problem, but the game mechanics also, as I said, about the mediums and light tanks. The gun depression is absolutely abysmal, meaning that most of the time you will not be able to shoot an enemy. Well, this has been shown throughout the video. The enemies have been able to shoot me, and I haven't been able to shoot them. I have to get into positions where I am vulnerable to shoot them, and even hanging on the sides of cliffs just to use the gun elevation instead of depression, because there isn't any. It's a problem with this vehicle, which means that anything lower than you, well, you just can't hit. And onto the last weakness, which there are many more weaknesses to this thing, but I think this number is enough. The reload time of the gun is one of the longest at its BR. I think one of the early versions of the T-34 has a longer reload time, and that's about it. Basically everything else that you'll come up against reloads faster. So if you don't get the first shot off, the enemy will have 2 shots to your 1 every time, and against something like a Stug 3, that really sucks. So, overall, what do I think about this thing? I think it's a fun vehicle to drive. It's definitely a challenge. The problem is, this game is not designed for a vehicle like this. The maps are not designed for tank destroyers. They're not designed for stuff like this, and this thing just has too many drawbacks to recommend to play. If you want to play a tank destroyer, play the SU-122 and have an absolute blast. That thing is just fun. And eventually I will do a review on it. But anyway, thank you for watching, and have a great day.